Today I'm going to show you guys a Photoshop action that I created that kind of mimics Ektar 100 speed film. And if you guys would like to download this action, it's available on my website. You can download for free. So let's get right into the action. So I'm going to work with this raw file today. So here's the raw file. And I'm actually not going to do any changes to it. I'm just going to open as is. Alright, so I'm going to go to my actions. I created this one already, so I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. If you guys want to download it, it's available on my website. I'll give you guys a link for that so you can go download that directly. So here's the action. I'm just going to hit play. And it's going to start running through the action. So the first thing is sharpening. So typically with Ektar 100, it's a very sharp, crisp film. So I'm trying to, I want to mimic that, so I'm going to create a high-pass sharpening. So, and I did that, and I have a dialog box that comes up. You hit continue. I have a default set to 3. You can adjust this though. If you have a very large image, you might have to increase the radius. If you have a small image, you'll probably want to reduce the image. So watch, you can see the higher you go, the more sharpening you add, but I'm going to bring this way back down. So I'll go around, I'll do 2.5. And then the next one dialog that comes up is the film grain. So, and this film grain was basically just created by creating a new layer, and then you're filling it with 50% gray. You set it as an overlay. So it's just saying adjust the opacity of the film grain, hit continue, and then it's just going to run through the other steps. Saying all done. You can individually adjust your adjustment layers, contrast, hue, saturation, vibrance, and color balance. And contrast is probably the only one that you're going to need to adjust. So I'll hit continue. I'll come back to my film grain layer, and I can adjust the opacity. So if I go higher, it's going to add more green. With Ektar 100, typically the grain is very minimal. It's a very slight grain. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit. So I was at 40, but I'm going to bring it down to around 20. And then my other one that I wanted to adjust was my contrast. I can bring this down just a tad. So, and I'll just walk you through the layers. We have our sharpening layer, which is basically, it was just creating a new layer, stamping it, and then creating an overlay as the blend mode. And then we add our high pass sharpening. And then our film grain is a 50% gray filled layer set to overlay. And then our hue saturation, I'll walk you through. So the idea of this action was to put more saturation in like the blues and cyans and greens, and then kind of reduce the saturation in your skin tone colors. So that would be like your reds, magentas, yellows. And you can see we have our reds, I reduced it by 15%. Our yellows reduced by 10%. Green was increased by 10%. Cyans increased by 15%. Blues by 10%. And magentas reduced by 10. And then we have our vibrance layer. And I just increased the vibrance and saturation, which Ektar film is known for. It's very saturated and vivid. So I increased that. And then we have a color balance. So I'll start with my shadows. So I added more cyan, added more blue, kept magenta, green the same. For midtones, we have more cyan and we have more blue. And highlights, same thing. So I basically just repeated the same thing for each. And then finally we had our brightness and contrast. I just added a little contrast. It was originally set for 15, but with this image I reduced down to 8. I will go back to my history. So here's our original image. And then this is the image with all the effects applied. So I did this composite a while ago. So I'm just going to walk you through this one as well. So I'll hit my play button. It's going to ask me for my sharpening. I hit continue. And then I can reduce this a little bit. So I'm going to go 2 for this one. Hit OK. And adjust the opacity of film grain. Continue. And it's just saying I can adjust the layers, and contrast is probably the one I want to adjust. So hit continue. I'll go back to my film grain. I'm going to reduce this to, we'll go 16%. And then my contrast, I'll just bring that down just a tiny bit. So if we go back to my original, there's my original. So if we go back to the final result, so you can see we have our background becomes more vivid, the blues more vivid. The skin tone is actually reduced slightly. And you can see how the skin tones are fairly neutral as opposed to the original image, which they're more on like kind of the orange side. So with Ektar 100 film, the skin tones are very natural and neutral, which is what I was going for in this action. So hopefully this was helpful. You can go download the action on my website. I'll throw up a link for that. And hopefully this will help you guys if you guys are interested in achieving some film look.